In terms of natural resources, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is one of the richest countries in the world, and perhaps the richest of them all. However, this unparalleled abundance has proven to be more of a curse than a blessing. Today, nearly 3/4 of its population live in poverty, while corruption, foreign exploitation, and unending conflict ravage the nation. So, how did this happen? How did the resource curse prevent the Congo from reaching its boundless potential? To understand this, we must revisit its dark and violent history. This is a story involving greed, systemic exploitation, colonialism, wars, assassinations, and unprecedented economic mismanagement. What is now the modern-day Democratic Republic of Congo was carved out by one man, King Leopold II of Belgium. In the late 19th century, Leopold wanted to transform his small, modest nation into an empire that could rival Britain's global dominance. But his government was pessimistic. They dismissed his dreams, arguing that it was too costly and unrealistic. Leopold, however, was not a man who was easily deterred. If Belgium would not build him an empire, he would build one himself. In 1879, he secretly hired Henry Morton Stanley, a British-American explorer, who was already famous for his expeditions across Africa. Stanley was a man of contradictions, a morally ambiguous figure who had once fought on both sides of the American Civil War before reinventing himself as an adventurer. Under Leopold's orders, Stanley returned to the Congo River Basin, a region he had previously mapped, and began constructing trading posts, roads, and a fragile network of outposts. However, his most crucial mission lay not in infrastructure, but in paper. Stanley distributed treaties to local chiefs. He claimed that they were agreements of trade and mutual cooperation. In reality, these documents tricked rulers into surrendering their lands, piece by piece, to Leopold. It was conquest disguised as diplomacy. With these deceptive treaties in hand, Leopold now needed international legitimacy. And that came at the Berlin Conference, held between 1884 and 1885. The conference was a gathering of European powers, the Ottoman Empire and the United States, where they discussed the terms of dividing up and colonizing Africa. Obviously, without African consent, Leopold presented his Congo as a humanitarian project, a land where trade would be free and slavery abolished. The powers were eager to avoid conflict with one another, as they knew about the vast economic potential of the Congo, so they recognized his claim. And so, the Congo Free State, Leopold's personal property, was born. Behind this humanitarian mask, the Congo Free State was only free in name. Leopold's administration quickly built a ruthless machinery of exploitation. The land was divided into 3 zones. The Crown Domain, which was Leopold's personal empire, and everything, including the people, was his property. The concessions, which were vast territories handed to private companies and were given state-like powers, but with little or no oversight. And the state domain, these were lands directly controlled by the colonial state. They all existed for one purpose: to drain Congo's wealth. At the time, ivory and wild rubber were in huge demand, and the Congo could supply them. To enforce his extraction system, Leopold created the Force Publique, a brutal paramilitary machine built on coercion and terror. Their presence in the Congo became synonymous with inhumane and atrocious activities. Soldiers raided villages that failed to meet impossible quotas, burning their homes, seizing their food, not to mention taking their women and children hostage. Mutilations also became common. The natives' hands were cut off as proof that bullets had been used correctly. This was a grotesque accounting system that encouraged indiscriminate killing and torture. Basically, the rule was that a set of hands had to account for each bullet fired as proof of a kill shot. Entire communities fled deeper into the forest, trying to escape the brutality, only to be hunted down. The Force Publique also whipped, executed, and massacred those who resisted. It is estimated that between 5 to 10 million people lost their lives under its brutal conditions. As the Congolese people suffered immensely, Leopold amassed a huge fortune. While his fortune and prestige grew, his observers became weary. From the late 1890s to early 1900s, the floodgates began to open, and some missionaries sounded the alarm. Their horrific testimonies were smuggled out to Europe by steamboat crews and mail carriers. These letters challenged the myth of a benevolent, civilizing mission, a myth that was orchestrated by Leopold himself. They exposed the Congo Free State for what it truly was. Most missionaries, once welcomed by Leopold as potential allies, became some of his fiercest critics as they realized the scale of the abuse unfolding around them. Trying to protect his reputation and silence his critics, Leopold launched a vast propaganda campaign. He began flooding Europe with deceptive pamphlets, staged philanthropic speeches, and even went a step further by paying friendly journalists to repeat the myth of rescuing Africans from slavery and barbarism. His Congolese officials were instructed to block independent observers, restrict missionary travel, and destroy incriminating documents. Any testimony that escaped his campaign was dismissed as an exaggeration, or as the work of his jealous rivals. He even funded international exhibitions that showcased model schools and hospitals that barely existed, still trying to convince the public that the Congo was a humanitarian project. But the louder he tried to defend his empire, the more glaring the truth became, as his critics became louder. The final nail to his propaganda coffin was hammered in by E.D. Morel and Roger Casement. Morel, an investigative journalist, uncovered the truth by studying cargo manifests. And what he discovered shocked him. Ships leaving Belgium were packed with guns and ammunition, while those returning were loaded with rubber. This was proof that the Congo's wealth did not come from trade, but from terror. Roger Casement, the British consul, traveled through the Congo and documented eyewitness testimonies from hundreds of victims. His official report exposed systematic atrocities on a scale that shocked the world. These reports shattered Leopold's carefully constructed lies, igniting global outrage and pushing the Belgian government to finally strip him of his private empire.